Magic the Gathering has a mechanic so hated by its players that you will see complaints about it literally every single day. Despite this, the designers of Magic argue it's as amazing as it is misunderstood.
One of the reasons Magic's as fun as it is this thing that you love to diss. It is awesome, and it is making the game fun for you, even if you don't understand it.
If you spend any time around Magic the Gathering players, you'll have heard them say things like land screw, mana flood, and god damn it. This is all because of the mana system. In Magic, you play the game by casting spells, and to cast spells you need mana. Mana is created by tapping land cards which go into your deck. If you don't draw enough lands, you get mana screwed, and if you draw too many lands, you get flooded. Imagine you've had a long week and you finally scrape together a few hours to play your favorite card game, only to get screwed, then flooded, then screwed again. I know, normally you'd have to pay extra for that. It's no surprise then that modern card game designers want to avoid this entirely. Why risk such a bad experience when you could just have a fixed amount of mana gained every turn or remove lands from your game entirely? Well, there are trade-offs for all of this, and they're not immediately obvious. I need to clarify real quick that this is a video about the mana system and not the color pie. Players love color identity in Magic and all the stuff that goes along with it. Like me, for example, I'm a Johnny/Spike Golgari player, so now not only do you know more about me, you know to cross the road if you see me coming. No, the mana system covers how lands give you mana, how you spend that mana, and how that affects the game. So this whole video is actually built on a solid foundation of salt, which is how you know I'm a card game enjoyer. See, I got back into playing Magic after a long break when Duskmourn released, and I loved drafting that set. Duskmourn has a lot of ways for you to manipulate the top of your deck, draw cards, spend mana, and leverage your skill. Also, Golgari guy, sucker for graveyard stuff. Being fully hooked again, I was excitedly waiting on Foundations. Wizards was really pushing the set for new players, putting a lot of marketing effort behind it. Unfortunately, I had such a bad experience with this set that I took a break again right away. It's not that I was losing loads, I actually had a good win rate in Foundations, but I found that an unreasonable number of games were decided by mana issues, both for me and my opponents. Too often the board state would look something like this, where both players have used all their cards, they have nothing to spend their spare mana on, and they are just praying to draw literally anything relevant. So why was Foundations so bad for this? It didn't have a lot of the modern mana smoothing design choices that were in Duskmourn. There were very few scry or surveil mechanics that let you adjust the top card of your library. Card draw itself was very rare, and basically any card that said draw a card on it was a high pick and draft, and there were almost no cards with activated abilities to sink your spare mana into, which is a very useful way of mitigating flood. Even if you fail to draw spells, at least you've got something you can use your mana on. All this made for a very frustrating environment, which, as a more experienced player who's pretty chill about variance, left me feeling like I was going crazy. If a brand new player had tried to draft this set a couple of times, gotten frustrated and given up forever, I wouldn't have blamed them at all. This is one of the weaknesses of the mana system that Wizards of the Coast tries to avoid with modern design. These extremes of screw and flood which are exacerbated without the guardrails that we've discovered over the last few decades.
Ideally, players who do well will think it's because of their own actions, but those who did poorly will think it's because of their luck. But as you become more mature, you'll understand when you got lucky and when you didn't.
Randomness can be wielded as both a weapon and a shield. Same as guys will do anything other than going to therapy, players will do anything other than accept responsibility for their losses. So when the mana system isn't enough to cushion a person's ego, then they'll find new and interesting scapegoats, like the shuffler is rigged, or that their opponent is a dishonorable samurai that broke the code, or that Wizards of the Coast personally whitelisted their opponent's account. This addiction to randomness is so deeply ingrained in our psychology that these days every live service game tries to hook you using it. I'm talking about the Skinner box, and if you're not familiar, let me give you a quick summary. How else am I going to use my psychology degree? In the 1950s, B.F. Skinner ran experiments on rats to see how they reacted to rewards. There were a lot of variations of this famous experiment, but the two that we care about at the moment are fixed and variable rewards. With fixed rewards, the rat pressed the lever, got their food, done deal. The rat quickly learned that the action of pressing the lever was related to getting food, but if the food stopped, then the rat would also stop pressing the lever, because nothing was coming out. With variable rewards, when the rat pressed the lever, they could either get a small treat, a huge treat, or nothing. But unlike the previous mice, these ones were hooked on pressing the lever not only repeatedly, but long after the rewards stopped. This was also shown to be true of humans. By the way, YouTube is basically a virtual Skinner box of variable rewards, so reward this rat by hitting that subscribe button. Please, my rat family is starving. We recently had to remortgage the hovel. So anyway, animals and people can easily get addicted to gambling. It's a very powerful way to keep people playing your game through the highs and lows for many, many years. But what if your game doesn't have much luck?
I like to think of them as being on a graph, and you can see here you might put bingo in the area with no skill, and high luck. Tic-tac-toe doesn't have too much skill, doesn't have too much luck. Go has a lot of skill and not much luck, and poker has a lot of skill and a lot of luck.
When a game is both high skill and low luck, it's very hard to bring in new players and keep them. People love winning and hate losing. I'm sure that if chess came out today for the first time, it would actually have a very hard time gaining traction. Not because chess is bad, it's really good, but the friction that it puts players through is a hard sell without the legacy and mystique to prop it up. All games sit somewhere on this scale, and I believe that if you make your card games too low randomness, it has the same effect as no randomness. That's to say that in a competitive 1v1 game, if the best player wins 95+% of the time, that game is probably doomed to fail. For a few real life examples of this, I got pretty heavily into both Gwent and Artifact on release. I know. Hold on, I'll explain. I entered tournaments for these games, and despite being card games with randomness, they had enough skill expression that you were overwhelmingly favored against weaker players. In Gwent, to win a game, you needed to win 2 out of 3 rounds. You did this by presenting more points than your opponent. It was common for less experienced players to use too many of their resources to win the first round and then run out of gas in the remaining 2 rounds. It was a valid tactic to throw the first round and play to win the last 2. This balancing act of always being just far enough ahead on points that you were winning, but not so far ahead that you wasted too many resources, was great for skill expression. However, this translated to very high win rates for the best players, and I think beyond the monetization issues, it was a large part of why the game's community started shrinking over time. Artifact, also made by Richard Garfield incidentally, had many issues, but as a game, I enjoyed it greatly. It included so much randomness that many players complained it was poorly designed. This really rustled my jimmies at the time, but talking about it in a 50-minute video I said wasn't going to change reality. Based on the popular MOBA game Dota 2, heroes entered random lanes, attacked random directions, random items showed up in the shop, and of course you still had a deck full of cards to randomly draw from. The thing is that all of this could be planned around with enough practice, and the satisfaction of navigating around all these variables multiple turns in advance is really hard to match. Through this, experienced players crushed new ones and left them confused as to why. Randomness is such a powerful design tool that even in other game genres, which are traditionally less random, they've started adding in more random mechanics. This is to try and help them appeal to a wider audience. Without getting too into the weeds, a lot of modern fighting games like Street Fighter 6 have added in systems that are either hard or impossible to react to. So as the defender when you're being attacked, you are left guessing as to what the correct choice is. You can either limit your risk and take a small amount of damage, or you can attempt to guess correctly and either get away with no damage or risk taking a lot of damage. This kind of change allows weaker players to beat those above them, and it widens the matchmaking pool for competitive play.
I know it's coming. I'm gonna stop it. I'm stopping it right now. This game's garbage, bro.
Does this kind of change sometimes annoy professional players? Yeah, very much so. But it does help new players feel more powerful because when they win, they earned it, and when they lost, well, they got unlucky. Sound familiar? All of this is to say that randomness not only helps players get into games by leveling the playing field, it also keeps them there through the addictive nature of the unknown. Let's face it, in chess we're never taking down Magnus Carlsen unless he has a heart attack mid-match. But because of the mana system, us mere mortals have a shot at beating the best players in the world. Finkel, Kai, PV, Javier, and more are just a string of bad luck away from losing to an average player. You see, land issues are the ultimate scapegoat. Not only does the mana system help newer players win through luck, it also helps more experienced players leverage their skill through its depth. If there's enough strategic knowledge to building your mana base correctly that it can be talked about for this long, then that's a good thing for tryhards and sweatlords. Hello, it's me, I'm Tryhards. Check out this great anecdote from the Receivables about all constructed mana bases.
It was a common truism in Magic that you would play 20 lands, 20 creatures, 20 spells.
Yeah.
The local events are very much defined by no one casting spells.
Sure.
Eugene Harvey, again, just like a master. We're sitting around the table at the card shop one day. He goes, you know, I was starting to think, what if we started playing like 21 or 22 lands? My reaction was like, what an idiot.
Just amazing. If these very smart people took many years to eventually move towards the right number of lands, you can be sure that it is not intuitive for your average player. Just ask any commander player if they put the right amount of lands into their deck and watch them break out in a sweat.
You want the game to grow as the game evolves in some way, meaning the players have to shift and change as the game moves along. Part of that is to keep interest in the game. Part of that is it adds a lot of strategic depth. If thing A is always good, you know, that's not as good as, well, thing A is good at a certain time, and you have to know when and where to use A. And later on, maybe A is not so good, you know, and that adds a lot of strategic depth.
I mentioned before that many modern game designers avoid Magic's mana system and how there are trade-offs involved. So let's have a look at Hearthstone. Each turn you get 1 new mana until you max out at 10. This has a lot of benefits. You never get mana screwed or flooded in Hearthstone. Your deck is all spells, and you never need to worry about being able to cast them at some point in the future. However, one of the main downsides is that because there is less randomness in the game, they have to add it back in by stapling it to the cards themselves. Things like randomly targeting, random spells, etc. You either love this kind of thing or you hate it, but without it the game would be very, very boring. Currently popular and more casual card games like Pokemon TCG and Marvel Snap add these kind of random mechanics like coin flipping or different location spawning as a way to spice up the play experience. Hearthstone also had the nickname of Curvestone for a while, the idea being that the best way to win was to curve out by spending your mana as efficiently as possible each turn and not thinking very much about anything beyond that. And the thing is, this is also true of Magic. If you spend more mana than your opponent, you usually win. But it's not guaranteed what mix of lands and spells you draw, so the suspense is kept intact. So with all the knowledge that we've gained over the years, do you think that Magic would have been designed the same way today? Would they have made it so lands were guaranteed every turn? How would that play out? Well, good news, you can try it for yourself. BattleBox is a way of playing Magic where land screw and flood are removed entirely from the equation. You have 10 lands, 5 of them are allied dual lands that enter tapped, and then 1 of each basic land. You start with 4 cards in your opening hand, you share a library with your opponent, and that library has no lands or cards that search for them, and ideally no mana acceleration, land destruction, or just deck searching in general, but I'm not your dad. You can play 1 land a turn from the pool of the 10 lands that you're given, and beyond that, the rules are the same as normal. I used to love playing BattleBox because it was an extremely quick way to just get into playing a decent game of Magic. If I was to rate the normal range of experience in Magic, let's say it goes from 0 to 10, like 0 being the worst, 10 being the best. BattleBox, I would say, shaved off the edges so that you would always end up somewhere between a 3 and an 8. You couldn't have the absolute best possible games because there was less suspense and range for dramatic moments, but also you shaved off the worst games where, you know, you mulliganed a bunch or you just got land screwed. Turns out that there's a lot of fun ways to play Magic.
So for example, imagine a game, I always have my mana. Turn 1 I'll have 1, turn 2 I'll have 2, turn 3 I'll have 3. Duel Masters does this, which is the game we made for the Japanese market. And we, like many others, fell into the trap of going, well, Mana's Magic System, maybe that's the problem. You know, you get mana screwed. And what I learned was, when you know your turn 3 drop is always on turn 3, that takes a lot of the dynamic element of the game. Your strategic complexity goes down. I think a lot of fun Magic games are not where everything goes perfectly. It's the ones where things go a little awry.
Let me tell you a story. I kept 7 lands, played 2 drop, into 3 drop, into 4 drop, into 5 drop, and won the game. Riveting, right? Let me tell you a story. I'm on the play. I look at my 7 cards. I can't cast anything. I mull to 6. I can't cast anything. I mull to 5. I still can't cast anything. So I mull to 4 and reluctantly keep. I managed to rip another 2-drop, play it, and I'm just hoping that somehow the top of my deck saves me. I draw this 5-cost enchantment that lets me bring back my cheap creatures from the graveyard for free, and now I see a way out. I can trade off my creatures for card advantage and try and pull myself back into this game. But my opponent has other ideas. They start playing bigger and bigger creatures. But then I rip a 5-cost dragon off the top of my deck. I offer the trade with my small creature knowing I can get it back, but then my opponent also plays their own dragon. It's not looking easy to attack anymore. But then I rip a removal spell, trade away my big creature for their big creature, and now I'm ahead on board somehow. I make a new small creature, and then my opponent plays another dragon, with haste this time. I don't have any flying blockers or a way to remove it, and then I rip another removal spell. get rid of their new dragon, attack with everything, and make a few more tokens. My opponent untaps, plays a massive dragon, goes to draw some spells, and then concedes. You can see how overcoming adversity with the mulligans, suspense and surprise about what you're top decking every turn really mattering help to make things more fun and interesting. As humans, we're hardwired to enjoy a good story, and if a game can follow those patterns, it will be not only more memorable, it will be more enjoyable. This suspense makes for some of the best moments we have on camera. Now, the mana system itself doesn't create these moments, just having some form of random draw would be enough. But there is more suspense baked into Magic than other TCGs due to the lands. So what happens when professional players mull to 4 on camera? In the Pro Tour Guilds of Ravnica finals, during the last game of the match, LSV mulligan to 6, then to 5, and finally all the way to 4. And if you're familiar with this story, you'll know that he dug in and then quickly got rolled over by his opponent with little to no agency at all. Shortly after this Pro Tour, they actually updated the mulligan rules, allowing you to see more cards before you make each mulligan decision. It was another good guardrail that they added around the game to prevent the worst extremes of bad luck. Was it because of LSV's loss that this rule was changed? We'll probably never know for sure, but I appreciate the sacrifice if that's what happened. Yeah, but wouldn't it be really sick if you won after mulling to 4 on camera?
He cashes it in.
He's going to 4. Oh my gosh.
Wow. If you keep 4 Rite of Flames, you got it.
Yes, keep. Are you there? Yes, I'm there. Keep, go.
Everyone in the audience cheer really loud if his hand is nuts.
If you've never seen this before, I envy you. There are some amazing dedicated videos to just this moment that I recommend you checking out. Nassif and Chapin do great work together to make this my favorite pro Magic clip. Nassif mulligans to 4 in this mirror match, and after a few turns manages to get into a position to win the game. Already a huge achievement. But before he can do that, he has to survive Chapin trying to take him out the turn before he goes off.
Ignite Memories for 5.
The odds of this are not only low, but the moment is stretched out dramatically over multiple random dice rolls, and I would not have it any other way.
Great shot. If Hat ever hits the Ignite Memories, I believe this game is over.
Great shot.
Oh, there's the great shot. He's at 5 with 3 more coming.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Just missed the Ignite Memories, and Gabe still got a shot.
2 more.
Great shot. He's still in it. It's got to be right. Can Nassif go runner?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 4.
Yes! Oh! He's still alive!
Luck is a marvelous way to get come from behind victories. When you start thinking about what makes drama in a game, that's one of the big things is, can your plans be disrupted? That's drama. And can you come from behind and actually win? That's drama. And luck really helps both those things happen.
Oh my goodness! Gabriel Nassif survives 5 copies of Ignite Memories! He's got 1 point of life left! Those odds were absurd! He survived Ignite, and he's going to be proud! Look at that!
So we covered a lot of ground in this video, from cognitive biases, to game design, to terrifying things like math. So in the end, who's right? The players or the designers? Well, that salty feeling that you get when you don't get to play the game is both real and valid. Don't let anybody take that away from you. But it's clear that Magic would lose some of its secret sauce without the mana system. I've played a lot of different competitive card games, and I've always been drawn back to those that have high skill and high luck. Not only because those games tend to avoid imploding financially, but also the puzzle of navigating whatever is thrown at you like some Doctor Strange genius is unmatched. Does that mean that I want to play traditional Magic Limited with almost no deck smoothing or mana sinks to save me from the extremes of variance? Absolutely not. Foundations was enough to make me run screaming away from anything close to that. But the next time that you have to mulligan down to 5 and you're getting pissed off, I hope you take a second to remember all the fun moments that Magic has given you.
There's all these things it does. It helps balance the game, it separates colors, it helps make cards have value, beginning and end, middle and end of game. Like I said, it does ego cushioning, it does drama, it helps with tempo, all this stuff. It's just dripping with things it does. Now, that said, is it fun? Is it a good game when I just draw no mana and my opponent runs over me? No, of course. Of course it's not good. You know, we also do a lot of smoothing mechanics and things in the game that, like, if you're aware, we help you with mana. You know, we improve mulligans over the years, and we've done things to help you with mana. Our goal is not to create that moment, but that moment has to exist. in order for the other cool stuff to happen.